Hello, this is Christina Barr, and you guys are watching Black Tea News. Hello, welcome to Black Tea News. I'm your host, Christina Barr, and today we are all going to be talking about social issues. So if that doesn't interest you, I just wanted to give you a heads up. But Trump said something on Truth Social the other day that has become a big point of conversation regarding the midterm loss, and he has pointed the finger at some other people, but now he's decided to point the finger at the pro-life movement. So some people are saying, not just the pro-life movement in general, but particularly some more, I guess people would call extreme positions. So we're going to go through that. Truth, is that what they call them when they tweet? They're not tweets, but because they're on his website. But what his statement was, some people are agreeing with it, and some people on the right are feel hurt and are enraged and are like, how dare you? So we'll talk about that today. Also, Dylan Mulvaney, we've talked about Dylan Mulvaney quite a bit. I heard that he was going to go through surgery, and apparently he has done that and has shared that he has gone through shaving his bones and etc. to look more like a woman. And we'll be talking about that. Also, Abercrombie and Finch has also decided to do a campaign with two individuals who were on the Dr. Phil show when Matt Walsh was there and asked, "What is a woman?" So we're gonna live through that once again. Watch that clip and watch a little bit of the ad that Abercrombie and Finch is doing. And the question is, why is society uplifting this? Gender confusion and so on, and what is going to be the total repercussions when we get to this end of this never-ending rainbow as these people chase a pot of gold that they will never reach. So that will be our topics for the day. Before we jump into it, I would encourage you guys to go to blacktnews.com, check out different content on the website, different articles, different videos on the website as well. Make sure that you're dropping your email into the newsletter so you guys can get updates when we send out a fancy little email. I sent out one the other day with some just accomplishments and some like how we've grown and just information on black tea. I did have a little error because I put my most popular articles for the year in there, but they're all linked to just one article instead of having separate articles. I'll probably redo that. But the number one article, the most read one, was regarding why I'm proud that the left hates me, and I was very glad. I really liked the article, and Larry Elder did also like tweet that out, so of course that also helped with the traction. A lot of my Michigan articles regarding Prop 3 did very well. The article I wrote about the Bible being blatantly against abortion, which I had to reshare several times because people kept using scriptures inappropriately, and I'm like, I wrote an article on this already, please go read it. So that was another one that did well. Also, Whoopi Goldberg, when she got into her snafu, which she mentioned again with the Jews and the not being real ethnicities, that she basically repeated that same line that got her in trouble from The View. But I wrote an article back then about how she was like off a week or two from The View, and I wrote about that controversy versus Disney and other folks who have lost their jobs and so on. So like they canceled the host from The Bachelor, who's with them for a long time. Of course, Gina Carano got canceled from Disney, like go Disney for those kind of comments. You got Roseanne, so James Gunn, but they brought him back. So I went through like a different list of comparisons, and of course, Whoopi was just gone for 2 weeks, and I don't think she's faced any repercussions for basically saying the same thing again. But Whoopi is employed to say dumb things. They know she says dumb things. They have clapping seals in the audience. She literally gets paid to say dumb things, so don't be surprised that she's employed to say dumb things. Just FYI. Also check out merch at the store, like the My Money My Business shirt, the black tea mug, we got that, and all kinds of goodies like the Club XX lifetime membership, FYI, to folks out there. So you guys can check out all those goodies at blacktnews.com. Also, you guys can check out some of my books. I've had some people ask, are they appropriate for younger readers, particularly like my daughter's a Christian, she's 15, can she read it? So I've explained, I don't write any, most of my books are fiction. I mean, fiction. I have one nonfiction out right now. If they watch TV like on the CW, they've definitely seen worse things than I've written. But I don't write curse words, and I don't. The historical fiction fantasy book does have the N-word in it. When there's like romance, I don't write sex scenes. I fade to black. There's violence in like all of them though. Some are more gratuitous than others. But anyway, I'll probably like lay out a video that's more in depth with that question. It wouldn't be bad to have on my website, but I know particularly some my audience is conservative minded, so I appreciate people's interests, and I very much appreciate folks who want to buy my books for the kids, and they're good books. People read them all across the spectrum. So go ahead and pick them up. If you go to blacktnews.com and hit the merchandise banner, it'll take you over to my, there's a banner with my books on. It'll take you to my book website. Otherwise, you guys can just find me on Amazon. Okay, so you guys know that I like to start off with a meme. I don't have a meme really this time around, but I did have something that I wanted to share, but I guess I didn't save it. Hold on. 1 second. I guess I did not save it. So I saw this shared headline, a collection of headlines that someone tweeted out, because there's already articles. I'm seeing people. Ron DeSantis, let's be honest, it's either going to be Trump or Ron DeSantis 2024. It's still a long ways out. Who knows? There could be other contenders. There's other people interested in running. But it's Trump and DeSantis, and though they're doing head to head, I don't think DeSantis is not going to run. I'd be surprised. It's his moment, kind of like he has momentum. Trump obviously already announced, so we'll see how that plays out. But some people said, "Oh, I don't like that the media likes DeSantis." I'm like, what world are you living in? I've already seen articles where people are saying he's worse than DeSantis. So anyway, someone had a collection of just articles during the Republican primary in 2016 when the media was attacking everyone else. So Rolling Stone, moderate John Kasich is actually terrifying. Salon wrote, Carly Fiorina is more dangerous than Donald Trump. Her brazen demagoguery puts his to shame. The Daily Dot, forget Donald Trump. Mike Huckabee is the biggest troll of 2016 race. Ted Cruz is more dangerous than Donald Trump. That's what the Washington Post said. I can't tell who wrote this one. Cut, it looks like The Cut. Ben Carson is worse for women than Trump. And Salon again, Marco Rubio should scare you. Why his nutty views are no less dangerous than Donald Trump's. So I want to just let people know, regardless of whatever Republican you end up supporting, the media will hate them and they will treat them. um, how they Trump is like uniquely bad, but they always treat Republicans bad, and they'll try to find a way to treat them worse. I don't know if the massive hysteria can quite rise to what it has been living through Trump, but I do remember what it was like during the last Republican president with Bush, and people definitely hated him too, and the media definitely hated him too. The issue with Trump is that he doesn't create all his problems. The media hypes up a lot of dumb stuff. But Trump definitely does sometimes create his own problems. So whoever is next, just FYI, they're going to be the next thing that's worse than Hitler. That's so I remember when people were saying, no, we can't impeach Trump because then Mike Pence would be the president, and Mike Pence actually believes what he says. So when people try to come at me like, you're a Christian, how can you be supporting him? I'm like, you don't like Mike Pence, and you don't want someone like me who supports my values, period. Like, let's just be honest. You just don't like them because they have an R next to their name, and they're supporting things that I want done. You would hate me more than you'd hate Donald Trump. And people recognize that meme where Trump is sitting in a chair and it's like black and white or grayscale, and he's like, they're not after me, they're after you, I'm just in the way. People feel that to their bones. And so there'll be more headlines like that, but I do remember them back in 2016, but it was cool to see collage. And I'll share it on. I did retweet it, so you guys can go check out the tweet. I'll share it on Facebook. So sorry, I thought I put that in my queue, but at least that's what it was. Okay, so let's just jump into this issue with Trump. Okay, so Trump wrote this on Truth Social. It wasn't my fault that Republicans didn't live up to expectations in the midterms. I was 233 to 20. It was the abortion issue, poorly handled by many Republicans, especially those that firmly insisted on no exceptions, even in the case of rape, incest, or life of the mother, that lost large numbers of voters. Also, the people that pushed so hard for decades against abortion got their wish from the U.S. Supreme Court and just plain disappeared, not to be seen again. Plus, Mitch stupid dollars. I guess how Mitch McConnell spent the money is what he's talking about. So, lots of thoughts about this. First thing to point out, Trump keeps touting his record of endorsements, and he did. Mike Cernovich has a theory that he read in Substack about him. Not about him, about the election in general. I don't know if that's true, but that was his suspicion. So Trump did truth out well, actually, I don't know if he truthed it out or he just sent it out in an email, but the Trump Make America Great Again, I guess, campaigner emails sent out the U.S. Senate victories of his endorsements. So his endorsed incumbents was John Boozman of Arizona. I'm sorry, of Arkansas. Mike Crapo, Chuck Grassley from Iowa, John Hoeven, Ron Johnson, John Kennedy, James Lankford, Mike Lee, Jerry Moran, Rand Paul, Marco Rubio, Tim Scott. So Marco Rubio's, of course, from Florida. Tim Scott from South Carolina. So these candidates, I don't think that it's fair to really boast like your endorsement made the difference. Like, why wouldn't you endorse these candidates? They were going to win. And then it's not like, I mean, I don't know how much support he personally threw to Tim Scott, but it's, if that's your way to brag, like, my record's so great. Endorsements is such a game, and they can make a difference. I think they make a bigger difference in races of primary races for sure. But if the name ID is low, with the candidates, and if people aren't associated with them, and then this person they trust comes out and says, hey, support this person, a lot of people will support that person. But these are all incumbents that we're going to win. So as far as his record goes, not a great brag. Then he had the non-incumbents. There was Katie Britt from Alabama. Now, he was not her first pick, and he ended up switching from Mo Brooks when he was trailing in the polls, and he also, I guess, claimed he went woke over some election stuff, and he switched to Katie Britt. And Mark Levin thought that was terrible because he thought she was a Mitch McConnell rhino. And Katrina Pearson, who was his spokesperson, also didn't like it either. And I think Donald Trump Jr., Mo Brooks said that Donald Trump Jr. called her Cheney Jr. or something like that. But that's what Mo Brooks said. And I didn't take the time to look up that tweet. So I just read that like in a CNN article. So yeah, Trump did not originally endorse that. His original endorsement couldn't get through the primary, and he did pull it, and then he supported someone else. Just FYI, those are facts. I'm sorry if they offend you. Actually, I'm not sorry if they offend you. That's just a thing people say. I'm sorry if they offend you. Ted Budd, Mark Wayne Mullen in Oklahoma, Eric Schmidt, and J.D. Vance in Ohio. And J.D. Vance did win. He was a Trump guy, but he did trail behind other Republicans. So those are some people he's bragging about when he's talking about his record. So just putting that a little bit in perspective before moving on and revisiting this tweet. So he's like, so he's saying it wasn't his fault, it was the abortion issue. So he touted how his record, and now he's going to the abortion issue. Now, before you, again, I said at the beginning when I did my intro, there's people who agree with Trump, and then there's people who disagree with Trump, and then there's people who see this as a lose-lose situation for him to bring up, because one, non-socially conservative people aren't going to like him anyway, and two, socially conservative people are going to feel upset by this. And not everybody is upset with it, or there's people who will always come out and defend Trump. I told one of my sisters about this, and she was hurt. Those were her words, hurt. And about that. And I said, the thing about this is that Trump he's a leader. He is not a political commentator. And the reason why he brought this up was to avert blame from him. And that's again why he brought up his record. And he's like, it wasn't me, it was this particular issue. So I don't appreciate it. So people are questioning, like, what is, by pointing this out, and again, I think he mostly is pointing this out, not really for even good analysis, but to shift the blame in a different direction. And I'm not saying there's not a bit of merit, and we'll talk about that in a second. But people are questioning where are we going with this? Are we going into a more moderate direction? Is that the shift of where you want to take us? Because I've seen there's very, very passionate people on this issue. And there's people who are like looking at it like, if pro-life people lose, then you'll have Democrats who will win and will legislate things that are not pro-life, obviously. But then there's also people who are like, we've been working for decades to get Roe v. Wade overturned. It is an unjust ruling that should have never existed. It's a bad ruling. And also, abortion is a terrible human rights violation. And even if it costs us a few elections here or there, it would still be worth it to get rid of Roe v. Wade and Casey and so on. So I understand both points. I agree with the latter. That at the end, that it is worth it, but that doesn't. But obviously, the work does not stop. And Trump here said that people worked so hard for decades against abortion, and then they got their wish, and then people just disappeared. Um, I think there are plenty of Republicans who say that they are pro-life and are pro-life, but they obviously have a lot more apathy on the issue than what they let on. And I totally got to see that. As if you've been following me for a while, you know that Prop 3 passed, and in Michigan, and I worked very hard to try to stop that from happening, and a lot of people did. The pro-life movement worked very hard. In my GOP, they did like an autopsy, and they do believe that the abortion issue did particularly hurt. They did lay some blame at Tudor Dixon and her positions, which we will talk about. Michigan is like, if there was an example of this playing anywhere, Michigan is the example. So we're definitely going to talk about Michigan quite a bit. Definitely going to talk about Michigan. However, they did mention that there was like a Herculean effort from the pro-life movement and churches who did try to shut this down. However, looking at the ballot initiative, and we talked about Proposition 3, what was on the ballot versus what's actually going to be amended in the Constitution is vastly different. So if you read just the ballot proposal, you would not know that it gives the reproductive freedom to every individual. That's going to include children. It's going to include men. There's no other way to read that. And it's all things related to pregnancy, not just abortion or sterilization or childbirth. It says it's not limited to. So there's a lot of things that either they didn't want to say, or a lot of things that you just wanted to leave in the atmosphere for whatever is in the future. And it could be written out of malice, which I think it's written out of malice, or written out of incompetence. And it could be both, but I definitely think there's malice there for their intentions. And there were even a couple of prosecutors, and granted they were conservative, that said this is going to affect children deciding, whether they're going to make changes to their bodies, and as far as like sterilization, other stuff, children being able to have abortions without consent, which is something that the ACLU, Planned Parenthood, and House Democrats have repeatedly, through legislation, tried to do for years. So them saying, oh, Prop 3 won't do that, it's just not true. It's what they've been working towards. But they also said they could affect sex education as well, and what schools may have to inform parents. Or even make it more difficult to prosecute and come after sexual predators. So there's a lot of things that people don't know about it. There's a lot of slippery slopes that could just really escalate. And unfortunately, I think we're going to have to see the damage before people realize the damage that they've done. And I think a lot of people didn't intentionally mean to vote for what was in it, but we needed education before people got to the ballot. And so I tried to make that case very hard. And it was very hard to raise dollars, at least on my end, for what I was trying to do to make that case. So unfortunately, we were outgunned as far as the money goes. And, Trump could have also helped along with that as well. And he also could have did more to help Tudor Dixon as well, who was the person who he endorsed in the primary. So since we're on the topic, let's just go ahead and hash out Michigan. So we had quite a few candidates in Michigan running for governor. And you have to understand, Governor Gretchen Whitmer, first of all, it's very difficult to beat an incumbent. There's people who are like, the pandemic was awful. She's one of the worst governors. You have to realize not everyone experienced the pandemic in the same sort of way. You might have lost your business. Other people got paid to stay home. right? And people, there were stores like at the mall, like Nike and Converse and other places, or just Champs, and there were people were having buku kind of sales, and people, because they had all this extra money, and they spend it on what they wanted to spend it on. A friend of mine from church, she said she knew girls who were getting work done, like surgery, plastic surgery done with their COVID money. There are people who really benefited from the pandemic. So again, you might have lost your business. Other people were having a grand old time. It's just the truth. So, and I also know people, like I've had conversations about her ridiculous policies, and I would list them one by one and how they didn't make any sense, like a clear-cut case, and they just look me dead in my eye and say, well, what did you expect her to do? It's like, make smart decisions that actually follow the science and not just like oppress the people. But if you're used to voting hard D, just like people vote. Actually, I know I think people who vote hard, who are Republicans, get ticked off easier than Democrats get ticked off at their leaders. But it's very hard to get people to change their minds on stuff. It's so people think that Whitmer was so awful, and she was. That didn't mean that she still wasn't going to win. That she wasn't going to win re-election, unless there was like a bigger coordinated effort to sever the ties with the people in Michigan. And I don't think there was a good enough counter campaign running the entire time to get to where we are, to get to where we needed to be in November. Okay. So with the Republicans, there was a lot of people running. And then there was this big snafu with a couple got caught in the signature verification, that they used a company that had fraudulent signatures. So that took out some really heavy hitters that we thought were going to, really cause trouble with Gretchen Whitmer and do well in Detroit, like Chief Craig, for example. People were very excited when he started to run. So after like the culling, we'll call it the culling, there was 5 candidates left. All 5 candidates were pro-life. Only one of them, Kevin Reinke, he's a businessman, believed in exceptions for rape, incest, and life of the mother. So Trump is saying these exceptions, people insisting on them, is something that caused people to not vote, to vote for Democrats, or affected the election. The candidate that he picked, Tudor Dixon, only believed in exceptions for life of the mother. But if you watch TV ads, you wouldn't know that she believed in any exceptions, and we'll get to that as well. But there was a debate that the Brighter Michigan PAC put on. I think it was their first like debate altogether that was like televised and stuff. So Reinke said that he believed in exceptions for life of the mother, rape, and incest. And his answer was essentially, that's what Ronald Reagan believed. That's what Donald Trump, former president, believed. And he probably didn't call him former president, but Donald Trump was supported. He's like, and that's what I support too. And I didn't like that answer. Because I didn't feel like that doesn't tell me that philosophically you understand the position. It just tells me that you hold the position. I don't know if you're going to be able to really, really defend it. If that's like, hey, these other people this is their position, then that's what my position is. So I didn't love that answer. There was a pastor running, Ralph Reinbrandt. Was never 100% sure how to say his name, but he didn't believe in any exceptions. Now, when people say no exceptions, some people are like, nobody believes in no exceptions. Like, everybody believes in life of the mother. There are people who say no exceptions, period, but it's not because they believe that if a mother is in a life, some kind of dangerous situation, that the mother should like automatically, she dies, like in a triage situation. That's not what they believe. They believe what they actually believe is that there's no situation where you would purposely have to kill the baby with the intent to kill the baby. And so, like, if you're in a situation and there's some kind of emergency and it's later in the term or something, that you would induce the labor, and because that's the fastest way to get the baby out, because an abortion takes days to prepare, especially if it's later. So you'd induce. So if the baby doesn't survive, that wasn't you purposely trying to terminate in some kind of abortion. That you try to induce the labor and they survive. They didn't survive, and that's obviously very unfortunate and sad, but that wasn't you intentionally trying to kill the baby. So just want to break down that philosophy. Now, in my opinion, I think it's better to just grant the life of the mother and not have to, because they'll say it's there's never a situation where you have to terminate the child. There's back and forth with experts, who say differently. And I know there's people like, no, those experts are wrong. I think it's better just to concede the argument, because ethically, if you were in a situation and you had to pick one over the other, I would try to always save my child as a woman, but I'll just say for me, like I would want to prioritize my child, but can you say ethically that the woman has to die in that situation? I don't think so in that particular circumstance. So if we want to preserve life, and if it was a situation where it's one or the other, you make the best decision that you can. But to say that the woman has to die, no one's like for. So I would just say it's best to concede the point, because it doesn't even happen that often anyway. It doesn't really happen. It's very, very low percentage where there's some kind of medical reason. And then when a lot of people say medical reasons, they could be because there's some kind of medical situation with the child with like Down syndrome. And of course, I think it's unethical because that's eugenics anyway. But it might not even be like a life-saving kind of situation for the termination. So it's very, very rare. It's better just concede the argument. So Tudor Dixon believed in exceptions for life of the mother, but if you didn't live in Michigan during that time, you don't understand the barrage of nonstop ads that were going on. And Gretchen Whitmer had a huge war chest, and you also had all these abortion groups and ACLU and Planned Parenthood and et cetera that poured in a lot of money to our state. And it was just nonstop with the ads, and just absolutely crazy. Like I was watching Family Ties over my parents' house on Peacock, and I must have watched like 3 episodes, and they're all half hour, but I must have seen 6, 7 ads attacking Tudor Dixon. And so she had different interviews with people, and they would chop them up. And it's like, no exceptions, even like the mother, and they replay the same audio or something. And Charlie the Deaf even, there's been articles debunking how some of the ads were, but how many people look up that information versus they saw an ad on TV and they heard the candidate say something, and so they're like, well, the candidate said this. So Tudor Dixon, she didn't have ads until like very, very late in the game. It might have been the last few weeks of the election, if not the last 2, where money really started to pour in for her. But let's just say it was the last month of the election. You don't understand the barrage of nonstop attack ads that were like against her. So by the time a lot of people saw her at the first debate, which I don't know how many people saw that, because it was like out on the west side of the state. I don't know how many people actually watched it, but she did a great job. But she made it clear that she is for exceptions for life of the mother. And I don't know how many people saw that. I'm still going back and forth with people right now on the right who are like, no, she was no exceptions. I'm like, that's not true. It's not true. She did have exceptions for life of the mother. So it was, an effective attack. It was an effective attack. And even like she was talking they took her words out of context when she was talking also about in the case of rape as well. And those ads again non-stop. And I'm not going to tell you it didn't hurt her, because it did. I'm not gonna tell you that it didn't hurt her, because it absolutely did. And by the way, there's a lot of Democrats who I probably weren't going to cross over and vote for her anyway, and vote for the Republican ticket, because they didn't like the candidates on there. Just to be frank, but there were Republicans who did not like her stance. Not just people who believe that she said no exceptions for life of the mother. There are people who didn't like her stance as far as the exception of rape. And I understand that. I absolutely understand that. However, I think there's a huge conundrum with the line of thinking if your philosophy is it's a baby, don't kill the baby. It's a life, therefore it deserves a right to life. Because when you're asking for an exception, you're saying that certain babies can be discriminated against over things that they obviously could not control, and they do not deserve to be protected from violence. Kathy Barnett, she ran against the pregnancy rate. You're saying that women like her don't deserve to be protected from violence. I know a lot of people don't like to think of it that way, or haven't thought of it that way, but we are saying that our government, which, by the way, we form governments, according to our Declaration of Independence, to ensure certain unalienable rights, and one of those is life. So I wholeheartedly believe that our government shouldn't be allowing abortions, except in the case of if it was actually to preserve some kind of life, like it was the life of the mother. Other than that, no. So if your main thing is the woman and the man, they got together, they did the rumba with their clothes off, resulting in a baby, and they should have to, man up, woman up with the decisions that they made and take care of that baby at least for 9 months, and then someone else will take care of that baby. If that's your thing, responsibility, whatever, then the I guess there's no really conundrum there with the exception of rape, because obviously the woman had no say in that matter. But if your philosophy is they have a right to life because they are human and alive and they deserve to be protected from violence, right to life doesn't mean you live forever. Right to life means that you have a right to not be killed. Then there is a bit of a conundrum. And by the way, I mean, there's been pro-life people prominent who've been like pointing this out for a while. Ben Shapiro has had some, viral videos talking about it. However, people on the left have begun to notice this conundrum as well. So I'm going to show you this video from TikTok. Now, no, I'm going to show you this Destiny. Actually, I'm going to show you this Destiny article. Because Destiny is not an article. It's a Destiny is a Twitch streamer and very popular. He was on Jedediah Vila's show some time ago, and I saw him share some clips on TikTok. That's how I found out about it. But they had a section where they talked about abortion, and they were going back and forth quite a bit. And he doesn't believe that human life is valuable unless they're sentient. He compared it to, he looks at like, well, at the end of your life, when you don't have any brain function, that's when, we say it's okay to kill you. But when you don't have brain function, like that's when we stop valuing you because your brain doesn't work. But the reason why we're like, oh, well, you're technically dead is because if your brain doesn't work, you are dying. It's a machine keeping you alive and there's no coming back. Now, I think it's really ridiculous when people use that comparison because, hey, if we knew that you were going to be brand spanking new, as good as brand spanking new in 9 months time, we would probably not unplug you. People would be advocating to the government to keep people alive, to fund keep people alive. If there was a way that like you could just went into an Odin sleep, we'll call it. If you can go to if you didn't actually go into like, if your brain was dead, and you could inject someone with some Odin sleep and they would be fine in 9 months, not just fine, as good as new. I don't think that we would just be like, hey, let's unplug them, because at that point in time, people know that there's no hope, and then your family makes the best decision because they believe that they're acting in the best interest of what the patient will want. So I don't think that's a good comparison. And I've also tackled, he also believes that if you're not sentient, then there's no harm being done if you can't experience it. And it's pretty wild. And I've already talked about this before. Because I don't believe that you just have to experience harm for someone to cause harm against you. An obvious example is if you're in coma, if someone cops a field on you, would you still say that no one is being harmed because you didn't experience someone sexually assaulting you? I'm curious what he might say to that. But I also don't think it makes sense for the sentient argument because, the experience of harm, because if someone it doesn't make it okay if someone just kills you fast and painlessly without you noticing. That doesn't make it somehow moral that someone killed you in that way because you didn't experience the fullness of your murder. And also with the sentience, like, that the fetus is going to be experiencing that in some time. But if you kill the fetus, like a dead fetus is just as sentient as you are if someone kills you. It just doesn't make sense. But anyway, I've addressed that argument before, and maybe I'll go deeper into it later. But Jedediah was like going hard against him, like it's a baby. She showed him a picture of a baby. He's like 24 weeks is like, don't kill it past 24 weeks. And she showed him a picture of 22 weeks and a baby at 19 weeks. And he aggressively pushed back on her, and she aggressively pushed back on him. And her argument was 100%, it's a baby, it's alive. Therefore it's murder. We should not kill it. And he didn't believe it was murder because they couldn't experience their murder, and they were debating whether it was murder. And so then it got to this point where she mentioned that she actually had exceptions. And it was very interesting how he just kind of turned the tide all of a sudden. So I'm gonna share this clip from YouTube. Okay. Hopefully this works out just fine.
I think that's a state issue.
Yeah.
Not because I agree with the right to abortion, but because obviously there's huge disagreements in the United States. Even 60 years or whatever after we've made it part of a Supreme Court ruling, there's still big disagreements about it. So I think that it should be left to the states.
I mean, I'm a 10th Amendment advocate, so I agree with the ruling because I believe that it was originally meant to be, a states' rights issue, and it was returned to its proper place. So even though I'm personally pro-life, I actually do make some exceptions for rape, for incest, for physical life of the mother.
Why would you make exceptions for rape?
Why not? Well, because
it's a baby. You would murder a baby if it's...
Listen, I'm going to tell you, I personally... Now,
you have like the worst collection of abortion opinions.
I'm not telling somebody else what to do.
Okay.
But what I'm saying is personally, like, I feel uncomfortable telling someone who was raped that they don't have access. I personally, I struggle with that myself.
That should be an easy one,
However,
right? Like, listen, rape sucks, and having a baby can suck if you didn't want to.
Yeah.
But are we really going to murder an innocent baby because somebody else made the mistake of?
Well,
raping?
that is an argument that is made. I personally morally struggle with that one.
Okay.
I also struggle with, obviously, life of the mother is life of the mother,
of course,
and incest creates many complications, physical and otherwise. That's a medical bag that I don't feel. Question: what if
and this is, I'm curious, I don't have to find this, but I'm curious, what if you are pregnant, you do I don't know if they still do amniocentesis or whatever, but you do the test and you find out the baby has like Down syndrome. Do you think you should be allowed to abort in those cases, or like
I don't even support that test? It's a disaster. The amnio is a disaster.
Okay.
But
it carries
no, I don't
know
believe you
anymore,
should.
like,
No, I don't. I don't believe that you. No, I don't.
But then why an incest then?
Well, you know what the problem is with incest is
there's a lot of problems with incest.
Well, there is. Here's where it comes down to, essentially. I mean, I could sit here and say I'm pro-life across the board, but it keeps me up at night thinking about those particular situations that I don't feel like I have enough of a hold over. And I think that someone who's been through rape, it depends on what does that circumstance look like? How old is that individual? I mean, there's so many questions that I need to ask about what's going on there. Is it a small child? Is
Sure.
it a young
So
girl?
I understand.
Is it an 11-year-old? I mean, that
But you have
becomes
no
so
problem
gray
telling
and
like a
so
15-year-old that
nuanced.
like you have a baby, it's 4
No,
weeks
what
old,
I-
but you have to, you're
Listen,
done. 15,
I
you're having the
would
baby.
personally
Mhm.
encourage life in all of those. Take life of the mother aside.
Mhm.
I would personally encourage life in all circumstances where I believed that I could. However,
Well, but you would vote for legislation making it illegal for a 15-year-old to get an abortion.
I would vote for legislation that I believe that the law as it is right now, where it's returned back to the states, is where it should be.
No, but so in the state of Florida, you would vote for DeSantis says we're going to make all abortion except for when the life of the mother is harmed, and in case of rape and incest, we're going to make abortion illegal. You would vote for that law if it was up to referendum. So
you mean should a
15-year-old be allowed to get an
able to
abortion?
abort? No.
Okay.
No, and here's where it comes back to me to the promiscuity, because unfortunately I believe that the reason that I don't value promiscuity in culture is because I believe that hyper promiscuity in culture has now made it so that we treat abortion as if it's an in-and-out procedure, like it's nothing. It's not.
So they go on, but I just wanted to show you guys that particular interview, because I think he had a point. And again, if you go back and watch, like he was aggressive in his points, she was aggressively pushing back on him. He's like, it's not a baby, it is a baby. What's being harmed? The baby's being harmed. Is that a, and she's showing pictures, she's humanizing them, and then when he's like, she's like, well, I make exceptions for rape, and you saw him like, wait a second, that doesn't make sense. And she and he gave like her, like, it should be easy, it's a baby, don't kill a baby. If that is your argument, it doesn't make sense why it doesn't hold. There's another example. There was a TikToker who has over 1 million views. She mostly does like space like related content. I think she does anyway. I don't follow her channel, but what she did a viral video doing one of those, I'm talking over here, I'm a different person and I'm over here, but it's the same person, which a lot of people do have done videos like that, usually with purple hair, being the liberal, which people tell me I look really good with the purple hair, but I'm not dyeing my hair purple. It's bad enough I'm a big girl. I do not want to be a big girl, purple hair. People will never believe I'm conservative. Anyway, so she was going back and forth with someone, and they said, oh, well, you know, do you believe in exceptions for rape? And she said yes. It's like, wait a second, like, why in the case of rape? And so essentially, you know, if it's a baby, it's a baby. Well, it's different in that situation because the woman didn't choose to. And so she then went the route of, oh, it just kind of sounds like you want to punish women for having sex. So that's the route where she took it. Now, I thought her video was silly, and a lot of people rebutted it, and I rebutted it as well. But folks on the left, especially, I think these younger folks who debate these issues a lot, and a lot of people watch these folks and they repeat the same sort of lines. These big accounts, they say stuff, and these younger people, they take it and they do their own lives, or they go in people's lives and they repeat this stuff. So Republicans who feel very comfortable saying, I believe in these exceptions, just know that it is very likely that very soon someone will challenge you about your exception to see if the logic tracks. Because I don't think that the logic really does track. Now, I appreciate her honesty, Jedediah's honesty, with saying that she struggles with it, because who doesn't? It's a terrible thing when anyone is violated in that sort of way, and we need to make sure that we're talking about this issue in the most compassionate sort of way. But we have to realize, both sides need to realize that there needs to be compassion for the woman and her child, and what is actually going to be best for the both of them at the end of the day. At the Equal Rights Institute, I can't remember the president, but he said a line that was essentially, if we're going to make sure that killing someone is the solution, we need to make sure that that is actually the best option on the table. So there's a abortion doctor, Dr. Hearn, who, let it be known, and he like literally wrote the textbook on abortion, or writes textbooks for abortion that's are pretty popular, that treating a rape, abortion does not treat a rape. Abortion is, but so quickly people bring it up like that is the solution, like that is how you treat a woman who goes through that horrific sort of thing. It's not true. There's different trauma. Pregnancy in itself can be traumatic. There are counselors that help you when you go through some sort of traumatic pregnancy. Robin Atkins is a therapist who helps women through those situations. And she herself has had an abortion. She herself has been sexually assaulted, and she herself has had very traumatic sort of pregnancies herself. So she's been all the way around on the issue, but she's very pro-life. She deals with people going through those situations. She did a very impassioned speech talking about how you don't treat the women in these circumstances with abortion. That's not what you do. You treat the trauma. You treat them what you would do to treat a woman going through a traumatic pregnancy are not the same techniques that you would use for a woman who went through a rape. They're not the same. They're not the same. And you also have to remember that I had a friend who had an abortion. She had an abortion because she thought it was going to be like a blank slate. It wasn't. It was very traumatic and painful for her. And I'm not saying that I think women go in with rose-colored glasses or something when they have an abortion. But some people don't realize how painful it can be for them, or what sort of repercussions can happen, including that women can die. So it's nothing to just throw so nonchalantly at people as a solution. And also something that I think makes abortion on demand very, very immoral, the Turnaway study that a lot of Democrats like to cite. There's something that doesn't get talked about a lot. You probably have to read the book to find out, or go to a couple pro-life sites who mention it, like Secular Pro-Life. 96% of women, it's either 96 or 94, I think it's 96. 96% of women who are turned away from abortion do not regret being turned away from abortion. And a third of those women, the Turnaway study looks at a period of 5 years following these women. But after 1 week of women being denied, they noticed that a third of those women come to not regret being turned away. So if 1 week could make a difference of a woman saying, gosh, I'm glad I didn't go through with that. Isn't it pretty remarkable and immoral that we are now a society that pushes this so hard? And people might say, we don't push it. Planned Parenthood literally just tweeted out that abortion is self-care, and has this monstrosity monster with these long, it's really fat and grotesque looking, and it has all these, like, its arms are wrapped around itself and it's like kissing itself. And it said abortion is self-care. Which I'm like, idolatry, self-worship. Like, there's no better image of it than that. The self-idolatry aspect of it. So the people who are the abortion lobby, that's what they're pushing, that abortion is good, that abortion is love. And it's not. It really isn't. So it's not, it will not undo what has happened. And it does not treat the particular trauma of the rape. And also how we treat women in these situations. Like there's not a ton of studies, but there was a particular study that Robin Atkins mentioned that I did go back and read myself. I just can't remember the name of the study off the top of my head. But women who have decided to keep their children, one of the things that makes it so difficult when they're enduring the pregnancy is how society looks at them, like questioning, you know, what, well, was it really, you know, was there something they could have done to not be pregnant? Like the victim blaming. And also people who look at them as if they're carrying some kind of stain that needs to be removed. So when people like Joe Biden make comments like the rapist baby and other things like that, think about how difficult you are making that for women who decide to carry their children. And then think about the people who have been products of rape. Like I mentioned, Kathy Barnett, for example, Eartha Kitt, famous, you know, singer actress. She was, you know, born of rape. And, you know, there's other people out there walking around. Many of them are pro-life. Some are pro-choice, but many of them are pro-life. And they deserve to be protected from violence. So again, if there's going to be, if we're going to see violence, not just violence, killing someone is the best, is the solution. We have to make sure that it is the best one out there. So I don't think that people automatically veering this way, like this is the thing that women need so badly in this situation, is the right attitude to actually help these women in this situation. So I don't fault a lot of people, even within the pro-life movement, who don't understand how to talk about this issue, because most of the time people will bring up this issue and it's not even from a sincere level, because you'll have folks on the left, or we'll just say pro-choice people who will bring it up knowing full well that they still support abortion in any other circumstance. They're just using rape, the abuse of these women, to justify basically using abortion as birth control. So there's some insincerity there. And so I'll see a lot of pro-lifers saying, like, I don't want to discuss abortion, rape, because it's like less than 1%. Well, that's still, you know, could be quite a bit of people who go through that. It is worth discussing, especially since now people don't know how to communicate this particular topic. So I think it's fair to talk about. I understand people. I don't know how much I'd want to debate people who don't genuinely want to know how I feel about it. If they just believe in, you know, no limits. I don't know how genuine of conversation you're having with folks, or if you can't have a genuine conversation with those folks. And by the way, if you don't believe that that baby is a baby, I don't know how you wrap your mind around, you know, the conversation fully. If you believe it's just a clump of cells, or it's an amoeba, or doesn't have any, any sort of inherent value, until it's, I don't know, 24 weeks or outside of the mother. Like, I don't know how you can, come to some kind of understanding or agreement with people on this issue when they discuss this particular exception. So, but if you can at least honestly, like, understand, we're having a conversation, like, you understand that I believe that my nephew, when I found out that my sister was pregnant, that he was just as human in value to me then as he is like now, like he has the same inherent human value. Like, if you can accept that premise, then I think we can have honest conversations about how we best help women in these very difficult situations, and still preserve and protect the life of those children. But it is a difficult conversation to have, because so many people use it as a club rather than saying, how can we be humane to both parties? So it's a conversation I like to go into more depth, I guess, at a later time. I was on a TikTok live the other day, and there was I don't know how old the person was leading the live, but she was younger than me, I assume. I'm 33, by the way. A lot of people think I'm younger than I look. Yeah, people usually assume I'm in my 20s, but I'm 33. So she looked younger than I was, and so she was doing a live, and she was pro-life, except for, you know, life of the mother. And there was these young, I don't know how old the girls were on the live. They sounded super young. Everybody claimed they were 18 on the live. I didn't believe them. They said that they were, and they said that there was like four people she was arguing with, but debating, but there's two people, two young sounding girls who were wanted to focus on rape, and they're like, what if a 10-year-old, what if 11-year-old, that, and they were just like going on and on and on and on, and that, and so I appreciated that she went as long as she did covering that subject, because it's not an easy subject, and I was like trying to get in the live so bad. I was trying so bad. I was waiting, but she was taking people as they came in, and I didn't realize I was so far down in the queue, but I didn't get on while those two young women were on. And so I ended up just like as a whole, like here's, things that I ask people to consider. And there's 5 particular things. The first one is, do you believe that the abortion will undo the sexual assault? Obviously not. Do you believe that the abortion will bring healing to that woman? And most people say no. Do you believe that a child should be punished for the sins of their father? And people will say no. Do you believe that a rapist deserves more rights and dignity afforded to them than an unborn human child? And a lot of people haven't thought about that. But if you are a rapist and you do this terrible thing, they're going to arrest you. They're going to charge you. They're going to collect evidence. You're going to go through a jury process with with your peers, and they're going to hear the evidence. And only when there is a conclusion that they're going to sentence you, and when that sentence happens, then you can have your rights taken away from you. At that point, with the baby, we don't do that. They just lose their rights. So we treat the abuser better than we treat the child. So, and the last question is adoption an option? So those were some of the things that I was able to tell her. I do write about these exceptions in my book. I do cover them briefly. It's in, of course, God is blatantly against abortion. Let me show you guys the cover for people who haven't seen it. It is, it'll be out. I'll let you guys know when it's available for pre-order, but it deals with biology, theology, and why we need clear moral standards. But it does briefly deal with the exceptions because I thought they were important to deal with. So those are a couple of points that are in the book. So if you want to learn more, you can go to the website, put in your email so you know when it's coming out. But I definitely feel like this is an issue that people need to be able to talk about in order to find solutions that are compassionate toward the woman and the child. But it's just used like for political points. And I think Republicans, a lot of them will say the exceptions because it's politically convenient and just to be frank, but I think but I do think it is difficult for a lot of people. I don't doubt the sincerity of Jedediah when she said that it was that's difficult for her to process, and it's going to continue to be until we can have these nuanced, difficult conversations with each other. But people don't want to be able to do that. As far as back to the election and how it plays, I don't think that America is widely ready for no exceptions except life of the mother. I don't think that we're there morally as a nation. I don't think enough people can wrap their minds around it. Again, we haven't. There's not enough people who want to have an honest conversation about it to even really flesh those convictions out. But again, in the case of Michigan, Donald Trump did back Tudor Dixon. He didn't back Kevin Reinke. And to be frank, the Republicans overall did vote for Tudor Dixon. And Tudor Dixon overwhelmingly won the primary. Reinke was the second place winner, but she was above him by 20 points. So people did pick her. Trump also picked her. And again, she got shellacked by the ads. It was nonstop. If you don't live in Michigan, you just don't know. Now, maybe you had similar situations in your state, but it was awful in Michigan. But I do believe that that Tudor Dixon is correct as far as her consistency with believing in no exceptions except life of the mother. However, one thing you will notice about Gretchen Whitmer and a lot of Democrats is that they do believe in no exception. I mean, no limitations on abortion. They are for no limitations. They will not say that out loud mostly. You'll have to kind of like read through the tea leaves or read their expression or see what they're not saying to understand that. Like she got called out on the debate stage by Tudor Dixon, like she doesn't believe in exceptions. But unfortunately, by the time that we got to that point in the election, it was about Tudor's radical perspective rather than Whitmer's radical perspective of no limitations. But of course, you would never, ever, 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 ever hear her say that and have some kind of audio that could be used against her. So people have to be very careful with how they phrase things and how they talk about things, because your audio will be used against you in some kind of attack ad. So when you're a politician, it's just something you got to be careful about, for sure. So I mean, when I'm asked about the exceptions, I guess how I would phrase it, or how I do normally phrase it, is you when you ask me that question, do you realize you are asking me to discriminate against certain people, and you're saying that women like Kathy Barnett, Eartha Kitt, etc., shouldn't be protected from violence, and you can go from there. So that's my recommendation. I guess to start off with, to get people thinking about that particular issue, because we are advocating for some kind of discrimination against these people. And as I said, go from there. But if you use an audio like, yes, a woman should have to do this, even though that they're going to take that audio, and their goal is going to make you look like a monster. And so you just got to be careful about that. Gretchen Whitmer, she has a very horrific opinion on abortion, and so do other people. Stacey Abrams, she was on Fox News, and they asked her, did she believe in any limitations? I don't think she quite said that, but you could, from the conversation, yeah, the headlines will say Stacey Abrams refuses to say that she has limitations on abortion. Other words, she believes in no limitations, but they know that it won't play well if they say, yes, I believe you should be able to have the freedom to kill a baby up into the moment of birth. When Pete Buttigieg was on The View, he was asked by Meghan McCain about his stance, and he went into a story about, do you really think women who have these late-term abortions, they purchased a crib, they've done this, and they make it all look medical. So that's another thing that they've done to skew the perspective that women only have late-term abortions because of medical reasons. That's a myth. It's really a myth. There have been different studies. Washington Post actually wrote an article about the studies of the women who have late-term abortions, and they found out that women have late-term abortions for similar reasons to why people have them early on in their pregnancies. They might be financial or whatever. As a matter of fact, people might just have them later because maybe they couldn't get the different finances and stuff together earlier. But there's all kinds of women who have late-term abortions. I'll bring up Kermit Gosnell, which people, if you don't know who Kermit Gosnell is, he was an abortion doctor who would induce labor and snip the spines of the babies. And people agree that he was a monster, but I do remind people, I'm like, he had a lot of clients though. Like, I don't think if you were in some kind of dire medical emergency, don't think you would wander into his clinic. Was disgusting. People would go there for an abortion and leave with an STD. That's how disgusting his abortion clinic was. Which people were not on the up and up as far as checking in on the regulations if they were up to standards. So a lot of failure with the situation with Gosnell. But my overall point is women were going there. People would recommend going to Gosnell because he did late-term abortions. I know we don't want to think of women doing that sort of thing because it does seem monstrous to a lot of us. Unfortunately, people do it. It's just facts. So those are also things that we got to continue talking about. So this is going longer than I intended. So on this particular topic. So again, Trump bringing this up, I no doubt that it played in Michigan, but in other places where there were restrictions, I guess Texas for one. I mean, you still had the reelection of Abbott, who, so it did play in places, and we did have successful red races in particular in a lot of places, but obviously not in places where that were swing states. Now Trump trying to avert eyes to this and not taking accountability for Herschel Walker, who was totally his candidate, who according to his son said that Trump, like everyone was telling Herschel, according to his son, that he should not do it because he had a lot of baggage, and Trump really, really, really wanted him to do it because I can know, he's a football hero, etc. Name ID, you just romanticize the idea of him being the candidate, being able to do that. And Kemp beat Stacey Abrams handedly. And if Herschel Walker was a better candidate, there probably would not have been a runoff, and Warnock would not be the senator right now. And there'd still be like a split, but there wouldn't be the majority. So at least with that race, that's on Trump. And as if he feels that Republicans didn't come out and support Herschel Walker and that's part of people just disappearing, because he said they got what they wanted and then they disappeared. People were very uncomfortable with Herschel Walker because of his past. I talked to my sister, who knows a lot of people who are on the ground doing like canvassing and stuff in Georgia, and she said that a lot of people were running into an issue where Republicans didn't like him because they saw him as a deadbeat dad. And when the story about the first accusation of Herschel Walker paying for an abortion came out, that's when his son went ape on him and trashed his dad. And he has a lot of followers. He's a big conservative following, and which people came at him as if he was like some kind of, I don't know, plan or something. Like, he's a kid. He's hurt. He's very hurt. But he said one reason why he talks about absentee fathers a lot is because he's been through it. So you can't be mad at Republicans being the party of family values and then be upset when they don't want to support a candidate that doesn't espouse family values. And even though there are people saying, and I guess rightly saying that, hey, he did this thing, but Warnock is still going to try to get like federal abortion passed. Like, don't support this person who believes in like no limitations on abortion, is pro-abortion. That still felt hypothetical to some people, and what Herschel Walker did felt personal to people. So if he was a better candidate, Warnock wouldn't be in the Senate right now. It was very close on election night, but there was a big gap. So there are people who probably held their nose and still voted for Herschel Walker when Kemp was on the ballot. But at the end of the day, Herschel Walker could not get the job done, and he underperformed, and Warnock overperformed, and he obviously took the win. So and he also denied it, and I covered this at the time, and I said, I know quite a few people who had abortions in the past who came to regret it and became fiercely pro-life. I know men who have paid for abortions and have deeply regretted it because they saw the sort of agony it caused the woman, their girlfriend, their ex, and they have to carry that shame and guilt with them for the rest of their lives for what they did. So if there was an admission and some sort of repentance, I think people could view that differently, but he just denied it. And I'm not saying that it's totally unplausible that someone could have found these women and forged his signature on a check and on a card. It's not totally not plausible, but that could happen. But it didn't look good. I'm sorry. He probably just lied, and it didn't sit well with people. So it didn't sit well with people. So Trump did support some people who had, some of these opinions on, no exceptions for rape and incest. Again, I'm not, I don't believe that there's anyone who literally believes that a woman should die in that situation. I think when people say no exceptions for the life of the mother, what they really mean is that they don't believe that there's a situation where you purposely have to abort a child. Again, I think it's just better to say, hey, exceptions for life of the mother, and leave it at that. I think that one's like too complicated to go back and forth on, especially if with medical experts saying differently. So there's some people who are like, Trump is absolutely right that this played a part in the election, and in some places it did. I'm not going to tell you that it didn't play a part in Michigan, especially how they painted Tudor Dixon, for sure. The Michigan GOP actually released a memo talking about her positions, and Tudor Dixon did not take kindly to it, and she like tweeted out the memo and said, blasted them for a lack of leadership. And there's a lot of finger pointing, and there's a lot of lack of accountability from a lot of people all across the board. So that's unfortunate, because if people don't want to honestly look at why they lost, they're probably doomed to repeat failure, just to be frank with you guys. So I really, really hope that Republicans in general can get it together and take back some victories. But I don't like this statement. Again, for the people who got the wish from the U.S. Supreme Court, I worked very hard, and I'm not saying that he meant that directed toward me. He could be specific on who he meant like directed toward. I worked very hard. I went to March of Life, the March. Is it March for Life? Yeah, last year, and some of you like helped to sponsor me go. Appreciated that, and I would have never really thought that that would be the year that Roe v. Wade would be overturned. Even as it took so long, I'm like, are they going to not do it? So I guess I was a bit of a pessimist, but I still, it's worth fighting for. And I worked very hard trying to stop Prop 3. There were definitely people who, Republicans, who would not defend it as much as they should have. But as far as like the evangelicals, at least in Michigan, where again, abortion did play a part, the church evangelicals did work very hard. Unfortunately, though, there are a lot of evangelicals that are pro-choice, that hold the position that it's something that a woman chooses, and they'll meet their maker, essentially. And one of the reasons why I wouldn't even say that was one of the main reasons why I wrote my book. Of course, God is blatantly against abortion, but I definitely see the need of it in the church. So I'm very glad that I did, because I frankly, I think if you have a pro-choice pastor, you need to get out of your church. But I will unpack that can of worms a different day. But a lot of people very much fought very hard on the issue. But there are a lot of Republicans or conservatives who say that they are pro-life, who push for that issue, who don't really hold the convictions, and I don't think really can defend their positions very well. I think there's probably a lot of candidates who should probably sit down at some of these lectures that Students for Life puts on, or Equal Rights Institute puts on, or Secular Pro-Life puts on, or I Will Do It, like whoever. I think there's a lot of candidates who run who we talked about this. Was it last week or the week before? Ben Shapiro mentioned on his show when Boehner was crying because she was no longer going to be the speaker, and his daughters, he was talking about how his daughters admire her and his daughters are Democrats. Ben Shapiro mentioned, like, I think there's a lot of Republicans who say things that they don't actually believe, and they can't convey their values very well to their children. And he said, I bet there's probably not a lot of Democrats in office who have Republican children, but there's probably a lot of the reverse. So I think there's a lot of people who say things who don't have firm principles or don't know how to properly convey them. So that's something we gotta work on. We gotta really, really work on. But again, Trump is not a commentator. He's a leader, and to point this out, it really looks like he was trying to point fingers and distract blame from him on how people feel that he played a role in the election. And there's a lot of people who are pointing fingers, and one of them at least does need to be pointed at Trump, just to be frank with you guys. At the very least, Herschel Walker. We know Herschel Walker wasn't a good candidate. At least for that one. There's other things we could say, but at least for Herschel Walker, you could point that at Trump. And people did try. I don't know. I mean, you could say they could have put more money in certain races, etc. But if he was just a little better of a candidate, Kemp would have pulled him over. Because Warnock had his issues too, and it's still a red state. It's a swing state, but it still leans red. But this signals to people, and it's freaking some people out, that you want to push people in a more moderate direction. And that's if Republicans compromise on their moral principles, you're not going to get, in my opinion, and I think I can validate this, but you're not going to create more Republicans. You're not going to get more voters. You're just going to create more Democrats if that's the route that we're going. And one day we wake up and we would just all be one party that's the same, just skewed to the left. So and if another thing though, if this is a signal that they're kind of putting out there, the pro-life base has been a very, very solid base for Republicans. If we're getting the shaft, they're going to lose a very solid voting base. You lose a very solid voting base. So I don't think that he meant to throw anyone under the bus with that sort of intent with putting this out there. It wasn't. He may feel that it's true. A lot of people agree with this post. I don't think it was wise. As my sister said, it was hurtful to her. I was disappointed. For sure. And I saw quite a bit of people online saying that this made him lose them. It wasn't a good move. Very quickly, let me move on from this topic. I did not mean to take up like the whole hour basically talking about it, but I want to very quickly mention that Dylan Mulvaney has decided to go ahead and get surgery. Now, if you're not aware who Dylan Mulvaney is, he's that person who is the most ridiculous trans person I've ever seen, probably. He very much did. He does the days of girlhood thing where he's like, oh, first day of girlhood, I wrote a scathing email, I cried too much, etc. Now he's gone back and apologized for videos like that and said he's grown, etc. But he recently did a video where he was upset about people coming at him, especially like the women on Twitter, and he said they're bullies, etc., and that they're basically putting a cramp in his style. And you know, him, and there's another TikToker who's trans, and I think the reason why they address the woman on Twitter is because if you say something about him on TikTok, it's likely that your video is going to be taken down, and I have been a victim of that. So they know that they don't have they have a lot of followers on TikTok, obviously. Millions of people follow them. But also it's like, I don't know, the app seems to protect them. And then if not the app itself, there's so many people who will go like mass report other people's videos and get stuff taken down. Like they know they are a protected class on that site. On Twitter, not so much. So yes, them addressing like, oh, people on Twitter, I'm addressing you particularly because you don't like me. It's not because other people don't like them on other platforms. It's just you don't have the pull that you have on TikTok on other places. So he said a veiled threat, which I covered before. People are like, oh, was it a threat? I'm like, yeah, it was a threat. Dylan Mulvaney has been to the White House. He's talked to the president. He's actually said that he thinks it should be illegal to misgender him, as call him a man. And he actually said that was worse than being accused of being a pedophile. So, or a sexual predator. So you can sort that out however you want. But Dylan has decided to, I guess, go ahead and do surgery with a feminization surgery, and decided to share it. The bandages around his head and gauze covering his face. It has 9.9 million followers. That he told him that they were he's feeling well. So if you have to have surgery to shave down your bones to make yourself look more feminine, to me that it doesn't make any sense. Obviously, if being a woman is, as Macy Gray was forced to say, a vibe, if it's something that you can just identify with, then why do you need to go the route of having the hormones and, you know, bottom surgery, top surgery, or whatever you do, and shaving down your bones? It really undermines the argument that it's just about how you feel and how you identify, if you also need to take such physical measures to try to replicate what biology has done to females. It obviously undercuts your argument, and it's like they're chasing a pot of gold at the end of a never-ending rainbow that they will never be able to find. So he's gone through it. So I'll say this, and I know I'll get a lot of flack for it. But how is this any different than Ollie London doing surgery to look like a Korean person? Now, Ollie London is an influencer, and he said he was a Korean woman, and people were so offended by that. Which, by the way, I brought this up in a video, and it went pretty viral on YouTube. Well, no, I guess I mentioned Rachel Doll, so I didn't mention Ollie London. How's it any different than Ollie London doing surgery to look Korean? And people will say, I know exactly what people say because people have said it. They'll say that, well, it's different because gender is a social construct and race is not a social construct. And then I will kindly point out that race is a social construct, particularly it's one of the less controversial points of CRT that race is a social construct. I mean, technically we're all a human race, but so if Ollie London can do surgery to alter the slits in his eyes and all that different stuff to be Korean, and he enjoys the culture and wants to move there and all that other kind of stuff, how is that any different than these people shaving their face down to have more feminine features? How's it any different? How's it any different? It's not. But for some reason, well, we still view like, right, if you're a minority, then people view that as a different sort of social status. So they don't want to make that something that is interchangeable yet. So they're like, as Ollie London has been confronted by people, and they're like, you can't just say that you're Asian and white privilege, et cetera, blah, blah, blah. So they all went from like a status sort of level. as opposed to being like, it's just ridiculous on its face. I think both are ridiculous. But it is interesting though that that women are below that in that totem pole, that they just think men can cross over like that. And he's going the extra mile, I guess, to go on with the shtick. So it's they'll continue to be a big story, I suppose. And people keep mentioning, because I'm going to be on frank with you, he gets a lot of clicks. So but it's not like he's a random person. He was actually in the White House, interviewed the president about these issues. So unfortunately, he has a lot of followers, a lot of young followers who are being unfortunately influenced on him. I don't understand all the women who are gung-ho on supporting Dylan. I don't know. You got some kind of a, what's that situation? Stockholm syndrome? Is it when you are being held captive and you fall in love with your captor, your abusers or whatever? It is so weird to me. People who are female and just willing to jump on the train with him. It's so weird to me, bizarre. Anyway, last thing I want to mention very quickly is, you know what? It's so late. I'll show it because it's better it's at the end, because I'm probably going to get dinged for copyright. So I guess it's better that it's at the end of the video. So Abercrombie and Finch has a new campaign with some, I don't know if they're both identify as non-binary, but maybe one is transgender and the other is non-binary. But these two activists were on Dr. Phil and with Matt Walsh, and they actually said they felt set up, which they weren't set up, and complained about the emotional harm done by the show after Matt Walsh was on it. But I want to play this clip from Matt Walsh back when he was on Dr. Phil, and then I will play the campaign, and I think that'll be it for the show.
Out to other members of the panel, actually, because just like the 4-year-old can't answer what is a girl, well, this is one of the problems with this left-wing gender ideology, is that no one who espouses it can even tell you what these words mean. It's like, what is a woman?
Well,
can you tell me what a woman is?
No, I can't, because it's not for me to say. Womanhood looks different for everybody.
What do you define a woman as?
An adult human female.
And what does a female mean?
Well,
how
that's
do you define a female?
someone with female reproductive organs.
Okay.
Someone who's, here's the thing, when you're female, it goes right down to your bones, your DNA. So that's why if someone dies,
okay,
we could dig up their bones 100 years from now. We have no idea what they believed in their head, but we can tell what sex they were, because it's ingrained in every fiber of their being.
Interesting. So I'm trying to understand. Your definition is that a woman is someone who is female, you said, right?
Correct,
Gotcha.
is a biological female.
So what happens if we have maybe someone who is female, identifies as a woman, right? Cisgender woman, right? As you just explained, maybe doesn't have the ability to reproduce. Maybe doesn't have those organs that you're talking about that are reproductive organs.
I have answered the question. You stood up here and said trans women are women.
Yes.
Tell me what you mean. What is a woman?
So I didn't mean to or think I was going to interject commentary, but Matt's going to continue to challenge him on his definition of what was a woman. I just want to say I really do find it grotesque when people will use situations with women like, oh, well, what if they can't reproduce, or they can't have kids, or they had to have a hysterectomy because of some kind of thing, or they like it is a normal function for women to be able to reproduce and have children, etc. You should not be able to make rules on exception. If I went into some kind of early menopause or something, and I wasn't having my period anymore, that would be a red flag to me. I have to go to a doctor, and I'd be very concerned. I'd be very concerned because something would be wrong because I am a woman. So to try to use things that could be some kind of medical issues or some kind of deformity, things that women can be very insecure about, as some kind of cultural, to beat these people to be like, no, you're not actually, you're excluding these people. Therefore, I'm a woman because you should be excluding these folks. It's really grotesque. It's really, really grotesque. It's really silly. If you asked, if I asked you how many fingers do people have, you'd likely say 10. And I could say that's not true because out of 7 kids, this is legit. Only me and my brother, and there's only one boy, so only me and my brother have 10 fingers out of 7 kids. It's a genetic defect on my mother's side of the family, and you're probably like, what the heck? They didn't have any bone on them, but I do have like second cousins at least that have bones in their fingers, and their extra fingers. So when they were babies, they just tied a rubber band around their hand or cut them off, and that was that. And so they just have these little nubbins. My sister right above me, she was born with 11 fingers, and my other siblings were born with 12. That is not a normal thing. So when someone asks me how many fingers are human beings born with, I don't say 11. I don't say 12. I say 10 because that is a normal thing. When my oldest sister, when my mom had her sonic, when she was born, my grandmother went to my dad, and she's like, Gino, there's something wrong. There's something wrong with the baby. The baby has an extra finger. And he's like, yeah, I know. That's like some runs on Isabella's side of the family. And she like hit him. She's like, why didn't you say something? Giving people the creeps. and when my sister had her baby, her first baby, the doctors were like, I guess they didn't, I don't know, I hadn't seen it or something before. So they were kind of concerned looking at the sonogram, like, and they just wanted to prepare her. And they're like, look, we found something. And she's like, I know, it runs in my family. I got, I was born extra fingers too. So it's not normal to have 11 fingers, 12 fingers or whatever. So just because you might have some kind of abnormality with your chromosome, or because you have to have you have to have a hysterectomy or something like that, or you're sterile from some reason, it doesn't give space for these men to come in and say, well, I'm a woman too because I can't reproduce, like these women that have something wrong with them can't reproduce. I find it grotesque. I really, really do. I dislike it, and I can't believe that so many people get away with it over and over again.
Womanhood is something that, just as Ethan explained, I cannot define because I am not
But
myself.
you used the word, so what did you mean when you said trans women are women if you don't know what it means?
Right? So here's the thing. So I do not define what a woman is because I do not identify as a woman. Womanhood is something that is an umbrella term. It includes people
that describes what?
People who identify as a woman.
Identify as what?
As a woman.
What is that?
Was to each their own. Okay. Each woman, each man, each person is going to have a different relation with their own gender identity and define it differently.
That doesn't,
and so
I'm not
trans
asking
women are women too.
Okay.
And you want to hold on.
Trans
you
women
want
are
to
women.
reduce.
What, you
listen,
won't
listen.
even tell me
You
what
want
the
to
word
reduce.
means, though. So
you
that's
want to
the
reduce
problem.
women. You want to reduce men down to maybe just their genetics, our genitals, our chromosomes, right? That's what you're saying.
What you want to do is
that's what
you want to do is appropriate women. You want to appropriate womanhood.
Okay.
And turn it into basically a costume that could be worn.
So Matt was totally right. They are wearing it like a costume that can be worn. And again, if it's just about how you identify, you wouldn't need to wear the costume. Dylan Mulvaney wouldn't be shaving his bones to look like a female. Which, by the way, if you've always been female, why I don't know, start wearing pink dresses, or why start talking in a very high voice, and why do all that if you were just as much as a woman when I don't know, you went to clubs and sang in your underwear and hitchhiked with booze as a teenager during Pride or whatever it was. So if you're just as much a woman and then always a woman, the why is there a sudden change in your behaviors and your dress when you come to this revelation that you are a woman? If you were just as much as a woman before. Because Matt Walsh was right that these people are appropriating womanhood as a costume. And by the way, not all women wear pink, and not all women like to wear dresses. And like I worked with someone who hated wearing dresses. They would always wear pants, and they were very feminine, but they just did not like dresses. So not all women like to wear makeup. I know I wear it for you guys when I come on here, but I don't love it. Although the red lipstick is kind of my signature now. I definitely got red lipstick for Christmas. And it's very, because of how my lips are shaped, it's pretty easy for me to put it on. My sisters really hate it. Because they spend all this time like trying to draw and just like boop, 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 and then done. So I want to show you guys this video from Abercrombie, because apparently these folks are now doing a campaign for them. Dylan Mulvaney's Tampax sent them something, and other trans people stuff, and they got in hot water with them. And I don't know how much heck people are going to raise for Abercrombie for this, but just wanted to show you what we're promoting in the world. So yeah, that's their Pride collection. So by the way, if they're like together, I know they're together. That's implication from the ad or whatever. They're a heterosexual couple, because the short one is a girl, and the tall one with the armpit hair is a man. So they've just had a long road. Oh my gosh. Gosh, it's so weird. It's so weird. It's so weird that that's how fast our culture has changed, our world has changed, and what people are really pushing. And if that's not the world you want, you better push back. You better push back. Better push back. One more thing for the road.
Rights, you say we all lead lives you can't respect, but you're just frightened. You think that we'll corrupt your kids if our agenda goes unchecked. Funny, just this once, you're correct. We'll convert your children. Happens bit by bit, quietly and subtly, and you will barely notice it.
Yeah, just want to leave you with that little horrifying nugget. That was from a gay man's choir like two years ago, maybe, singing "We'll convert your children. We're coming for your children." That was literally the song. The song. They claimed it was a joke after outrage. It wasn't a joke. Anyway, thank you guys so much for joining me today. I ask that you, of course, join me tomorrow. Make sure that you're liking, subscribing, following, commenting, all the good stuff that helps the show. If you like what I do here, please consider leaving a donation at blacktnews.com/donate. It costs stream, costs to run my website, costs to do all that good stuff, to be able to go on podcasts and all other things. So if you would like to support, please consider supporting. Also check out different merch that we have, like I got this cool Constitution is a Glorious Liberty document, Frederick Douglass, right there. You guys can get, of course, Black Tea mug. We got the "You Are Not That Special." We got the "Roe Casey Aborted and Life Wins" shirts that you guys can get, all kind of goodies. And I do really like this one. "Pro-choice men are sus," as in suspect. I just I'm not into men who think it's okay to kill their kids. Very unattractive. So go ahead and check out that stuff on the website, blacktnews.com, and make sure that you guys are dropping in your emails so you guys can get all kinds of updates when stuff happens. Thank you guys for if you watch on Facebook and watch on YouTube, make sure that you guys still go and you like and you follow on each one. I do have a Rumble account as well. It's just at Black Tea News. So go ahead if you like and prefer to watch on Rumble. And some people on Facebook like, I can't give money to not Zuckerberg, or like, I don't want to support YouTube or whatever. I'm not streaming on YouTube. I'm on Rumble until I get I don't know if I can, or you have to pay to go live. I have to meet that threshold. So if you want to watch on Rumble, go ahead and subscribe on Rumble. So go ahead and do that. It is available. Anyway, I'll see you tomorrow.